Have you ever felt like you have everything you thought you wanted, but something crucial is still missing? Tonight, we're telling a story about a man just like that. Late one evening, in a high-rise office overlooking a city of sleeping dreams, sat David. To the world, he was the definition of success. A sprawling business, a name everyone knew, a bank account that never ran dry. He had it all. But as he looked at his own reflection in the vast window, a single question escaped his lips, barely a whisper. Why am I doing all this? That one question was like a crack in a dam. Slowly, everything started to crumble. The next morning, his team noticed the change. The fire in his eyes was gone. He was present in meetings, but his mind was a million miles away. The deals he once chased with relentless passion now felt like hollow victories. The empire he built started to feel more like a cage. He was losing interest, losing himself, adrift in a sea of his own success. Days turned into weeks of this quiet desperation. He'd scroll through photos of his achievements, magazine covers, award ceremonies, lavish vacations, but instead of pride, he felt a profound emptiness. It was as if he was watching someone else's life, a movie he had no role in. His world, once so vibrant and full of purpose, had become gray and meaningless. The more he tried to force himself to care, the more distant he became. He was a ghost in his own life, haunted by a question he couldn't answer. Just when he felt he was at his breaking point, a chance encounter changed everything. He ran into an old mentor, a wise man who had guided him in his early days. Seeing the exhaustion in David's eyes, the mentor didn't offer simple platitudes. Instead, he looked at him intently and said, "David, you've built a magnificent ship, but you've forgotten to build a rudder. When your reasons are weak, your life feels empty. You're asking the wrong questions. Don't ask what you should do next. Ask why you started in the first place. Find your why, and the answers will follow." David stood there, speechless. Find your why. The words echoed in his mind, simple yet overwhelmingly complex. He didn't fully understand what his mentor meant, not yet. But for the first time in a long time, something stirred within him. It wasn't an answer, but a spark of curiosity, a glimmer of hope in the suffocating darkness. A new journey was about to begin, not one for fame or fortune, but for something far more valuable. A reason. What does it truly mean to find your why? And how could it possibly change a life that already seemed perfect? The real story was just beginning. This story is about more than just one man's struggle. It's a question for all of us. What is your why? Have you ever climbed a mountain you thought you wanted to conquer only to reach the top and feel nothing? That was me. My name is David, and for years, I chased the horizon of success. The bigger paycheck, the corner office, the respect of my peers. I got it all. I had ticked every box society told me to tick. And yet, I felt completely, utterly empty. The thrill was gone. So I started a journey, not to some exotic land, but back in time, through my own life. I drove past the old basketball court where I spent my summers, the smell of hot asphalt and cheap rubber still hanging in the air. I visited the diner where I had my first date, the vinyl on the booths cracked and worn just like my enthusiasm. These places were once vibrant with meaning, pulsing with life. Now they were just places. Mute witnesses to a joy I could no longer feel. It was like looking at a faded photograph of someone I used to know. I was living in a beautiful house, but it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a monument to my own exhaustion. Every morning I'd wake up, put on the suit, and play the part. The deals, the meetings, the relentless climb. It was all for money. It was a game, and I had gotten very good at it. But when did the game start playing me? When did I trade my soul for a scorecard? I couldn't remember. The line had blurred so long ago. One rainy Tuesday, stuck in traffic, a memory hit me like a lightning bolt. I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, sitting in my grandfather's workshop. He wasn't a rich man, but his hands could build anything. He was fixing a neighbor's wobbly chair, and he let me help. I remember the look on our neighbor's face when we brought it back. Pure, unadulterated gratitude. That day, I told my grandpa, "I want to help people like you do. I want to make them happy." He just smiled and ruffled my hair. Where did that boy go? When did he get lost in the spreadsheets and profit margins? He was a ghost, a dream I had long forgotten. That night, for the first time in years, I did something that wasn't for profit or productivity. I bought a simple, empty journal. The crisp, blank pages were terrifying and liberating all at once. I sat down and asked myself the question that had been haunting me in the silence between heartbeats. If money and success aren't at the reason, what is? My pen felt heavy, clumsy. The first few nights, the words were a trickle. I feel lost. I don't know who I am anymore. But slowly, a dam began to break. I wrote about my grandpa's workshop. I wrote about the sun on my face at the old basketball court. I wrote about the feeling of helping someone not for a fee but for the connection. I wasn't just writing. I was excavating. I was digging through the rubble of my own life, searching for the foundation I had abandoned. I was searching for my reason, my why. This journey is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel empty. I feel a flicker of something new, something real. Hope. If you've ever felt this way, like you're running on a treadmill that's going nowhere, maybe it's time to ask yourself that same question. What is your reason? Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. If this story resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd like and subscribe to follow along on this journey. Have you ever felt completely stuck, like you're just waiting for life to hand you the answers on a silver platter? You keep asking, how do I get that promotion? How do I get healthier? How do I become happier? But the answers never seem to come, and you're left feeling more lost than before. This was David's life, a constant cycle of confusion and waiting. He felt like he was watching his own life from the sidelines, unable to figure out the next move. One afternoon, seeking some clarity, David visited his old mentor, Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen was one of those people who radiated a sense of calm wisdom. He listened patiently as David poured out his frustrations. When David finished, Mr. Allen simply smiled and said, "David, most people spend their lives waiting for answers. They ask how before they ever ask why. But life doesn't work that way. The reasons must come first. The answers always follow the reasons." David was puzzled. "Reasons first, what do you mean?" he asked. Mr. Allen leaned forward. "You're asking for a map without knowing your destination. You need to understand why you want to change before you can figure out how to do it. The why is your fuel, your motivation. Without it, the how is just an empty instruction." This idea, though confusing, sparked something in David. It felt like a truth he had been ignoring for years. Then, Mr. Allen gave him a simple task. "Go home," he said, "and take out a piece of paper. I want you to write down 5 powerful reasons why you want to live a better life. And don't just think about yourself. Think about the people you love, the community around you, the world you want to help create. Why does your improvement matter to them?" That evening, David sat down with a pen and paper. He thought about making his parents proud, about being a better role model for his younger sister, about having the energy to volunteer for a cause he cared about. As he wrote, something incredible happened. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he wasn't just thinking. He was feeling. Each reason he wrote down was like a jolt of electricity to his heart. The fog of confusion began to lift, replaced by a clear, burning sense of purpose. He wasn't just waiting anymore. He was beginning. The harsh fluorescent lights of the office used to be the only thing I saw, a sterile glow on endless spreadsheets and forgotten coffee cups. My world had shrunk to numbers on a screen, a relentless chase for a bonus that felt hollow the moment it landed in my account. I was successful, sure, but I felt adrift, like a ship with no destination. Was this it? Was this all there was to my life? One evening, staring at a blank document, I decided to do something different. Instead of another financial projection, I started writing. Not for a report, but for myself. And as my fingers moved across the keyboard, something unlocked. Images flooded my mind, vivid and powerful. I saw my mother's tired but determined face after a long shift, her sacrifices just to give me a chance. I remembered my father, his hands calloused from work, always telling me to build something that lasts, something that matters. Suddenly, I was a kid again, sketching out fantastical inventions in a worn-out notebook, dreaming of changing the world, of helping people. I'd completely forgotten that boy. Where did he go? Each memory, each forgotten dream, felt like a jolt of electricity. These were the reasons I started this journey in the first place, not for the corner office, but for them, for that younger version of myself. That night, everything changed. I started waking up before my alarm, not with a groan, but with a sense of purpose. The office didn't feel like a cage anymore, it felt like a workshop. I wasn't just managing my team. I was mentoring them, investing in their growth, watching them light up with new ideas. We weren't just hitting targets, we were building something meaningful together. The strange thing is, success feels so much richer now. It's not about the money or the status anymore, it's about the impact. It's about honoring the sacrifices of my parents and fulfilling the dreams of that little boy with the notebook. I'm not just chasing a paycheck, I'm chasing a purpose. And that has made all the difference. If you've ever felt lost in your own journey, maybe it's time to look back and remember why you started. Thanks so much for watching. Have you ever felt like the world was testing you, pushing you to your absolute limit? One moment you're on the brink of a massive breakthrough, the next it all comes crashing down. That's exactly where he found himself. The deal of a lifetime, the one that was supposed to secure everything, had just evaporated into thin air. It wasn't just a failure, it was a public spectacle. The company he'd poured his soul into was now staring at a devastating loss. Whispers started turning into loud, doubtful conversations. Friends, people who had once cheered him on, now looked at him with pity, some even with a hint of, "I told you so." You could feel the weight of their skepticism. In the past, this would have been the breaking point, the moment of collapse, the final curtain call. But this time was different. Something had shifted deep within him. In the quiet of his empty office, surrounded by the ghosts of his ambition, he didn't see an end. Instead, he saw a beginning. He closed his eyes and let the noise fade away, traveling back to the very first day. The spark, the reason he'd risked it all. It wasn't about the money or the prestige. It was about creating something meaningful, solving a problem, building a legacy. That why was his anchor in this storm. He stood up, a new fire in his eyes, and spoke to the empty room, but really he was speaking to himself. "I know why I started," he said, his voice steady and clear. "And because I know my why, I will find my how. I will find how to rise again." That declaration wasn't just words, it was a promise. The comeback wasn't a dramatic overnight miracle. It was a slow, grueling climb. It was one small win, one new idea, one handshake at a time. He rebuilt, not by replicating the past, but by learning from its cracks. He was more deliberate, more focused, more resilient. We watched him not just bounce back, but bounce forward, stronger and wiser than before. His journey reminds us all that when you lose your way, don't look for an exit. Look for your reason. Because your why will always show you how. Months passed, and the David we once knew was gone. In his place stood a new man, not just physically but spiritually. His eyes, once clouded with worry and exhaustion, now held a clear, steady light. He found a new calling, not in spreadsheets or profit margins, but in people. He started spending his weekends at a local youth center, mentoring young people who felt as lost as he once did. He wouldn't give them answers, but instead he'd share his story and ask them the same question that changed his life. What is your reason? He'd teach them how to look inward, to find that spark of purpose that could guide them through the darkest of times. He saw himself in their uncertain faces and knew his struggle had not been in vain. It had become a beacon for others. And the most incredible thing happened. As he focused on giving back, on sharing his newfound wisdom, his business began to flourish again. This time, it wasn't built on frantic, endless hours of work. It was built on clarity, on purpose-driven decisions. He wasn't just chasing success. He was living his mission. His team felt it, his clients felt it, and the business grew organically, stronger than ever before. He often gathered his team and the young people he mentored, and with a smile that reached his eyes, he would share his core belief. "I used to think success was about finding all the right answers," he'd say. "I'd work myself to the bone, searching for solutions in every corner. But I was wrong. The real secret isn't about finding the answers. It's about finding your reason, your why. Because when you truly know your reason, every answer has a way of finding you." His story became a testament to the idea that true success isn't just about what you build, but who you become in the process. Have you ever felt completely stuck? Like you're at the bottom of a mountain looking up at a peak that seems impossible to reach? You see the goal, you know what you want, but the path is foggy. You don't know the first step, let alone the 1,000th. You tell yourself, "I'll start when I figure it all out," or "I need a perfect plan before I move." If that sounds familiar, I want to share something with you. My name is David, and for a long time that was my story. I was paralyzed by the how. How do I build this business? How do I write this book? How do I change my life? I spent years searching for answers, reading every book and listening to every expert. But the more I searched, the more overwhelmed I became. The answers seemed to create more questions, and I stayed exactly where I was, stuck at the bottom, dreaming of the top. One day, completely exhausted and ready to give up, a simple thought hit me, and it changed everything. I stopped asking how and started asking why. Why do I want this so badly? Why is this dream so important to me? I wrote down my reasons, not for anyone else, but for me. I wanted to provide a better life for my family. I wanted to prove to myself that I could overcome my fears. I wanted to make an impact, to leave a legacy, no matter how small. Suddenly, the how didn't seem so daunting. My reasons became my fuel. They weren't just vague desires, they were powerful emotional anchors. When I wanted to quit, I thought of my family's faces. When I was scared to fail, I remembered the promise I made to myself. The reasons gave me the courage to take that messy, imperfect first step, and then another and another. The path didn't magically clear up, but my reasons became a bright, guiding light in the fog. I started finding the answers along the way, not before I started. And that brought me here to this stage, sharing my story with you. You don't need all the answers to start, you just need strong reasons. Because when your reasons are powerful, your future becomes unstoppable. Reasons come first, answers come second.